Yeah, it honestly it didn't help that I forgot to charge it last night. I also straight up passed out last night. I didn't even finish the fucking practice test.
Okay, go.
Hi, today I'm going to be talking about the popularity of television, along with the economy, education, and public's view of the draft and how it impacted Hollywood's presentation of historically based stories of war and the toll of combat on American soldiers. Let me start with a little bit of pretext. During World War II, Hollywood made positive, upbeat movies that portrayed the U.S. as the world's defender against fascism. They told patriotic war stories to boost morale and increase recruitment. Popular characters such as Daffy Duck, Batman, and Superman were utilized to help support these themes as well, which is also where we get the entire saying of truth, justice, and the American way from a Kryptonian who isn't even American. So, yeah. The draft age during World War I was 21. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, only 9% of 18-year-olds graduate high school. Most children of working class needed to work to support their families. When the war began, the country was in the middle of a recession, but entered a 44-month period of growth, selling goods internationally. But once the war was over, demand for product dropped, and ultimately led to the Great Depression of the 1930s. Television wasn't developed yet, so people went to the movie theaters to watch newsreels to receive updated information on the war's progress. All information had to receive approval from the Office of War Information, and major news organizations voluntarily followed a code of wartime peace for the American press. The reporting from the front line only focused on the positives and was used as a propaganda tool. World War II began the draft limit, and the age limit for the draft was 21. However, in 1942, it was lowered to 18. Approximately 50%, 10 million men, were ineligible for combat due to health issues and illiteracy, and the armed forces needed additional recruits to fight. The number of high school graduates grew, with 24% of Americans graduating high school. World War II helped to pull the U.S. out of the Great Depression, and once again, really contributed to an economic boom, which continued after the war was over. Most Americans were still seeing images of war through censored newsreels because only 0.02% of the U.S. owned televisions. From the end of World War II to the start of the Vietnam War in 1965 was a period of great prosperity for the United States. In the beginning, the majority of the U.S. public supported the war. The government justified its involvement by promoting President Dwight D. Eisenhower's domino theory, which suggested that if one country in South Asia fell, then the rest would fall as well. The high school graduation rate also increased as well during this time period to 41.1%. Approximately 9% of households own TVs. And most of the public support started to waver the longer the war dragged on. There were signs that the government was going to have a hard time selling its involvement in the war, starting with the draft, which has proven to be a very unpopular method throughout American history. For World War II, 12% of Americans served in the armed forces. For the Vietnam War, that number shrunk to 1%. The Vietnam War lacked support due to public feeling that the U.S. shouldn't even be in the war. and fear of being drafted as well. Most felt this way because if you were a rich person who was drafted, you were able to buy your way out of going into Vietnam. In 1967, 300,000 protesters marched on New York, and 50,000 marched to the Pentagon. By the end of 1967, public support for the war dropped to barely 1/3 of the population. It also didn't help that many citizens were able to see the horrors of the war from their own living rooms, as this became the first televised war. Avoiding the graphic consequences of war was impossible. Americans' distrust of the government began to grow, and eventually gave way to the Vietnam Syndrome, the public's aversion to all the U.S. involvement in overseas military engagements. 1986 would see inflation starting to creep up, but unemployment in the country's gross national product was doing well. High school graduation levels reached 55.2%, and the war brought about change when students began to protest at high schools in Iowa, which also led to the Supreme Court ruling that students have First Amendment rights. U.S. troop levels in Vietnam peaked in 1968 at 540,000, with more than 300 Americans being killed every week. Public support for the war dropped to an all-time low on February 21st, 1968, when Walter Cronkite, Los Santos, considered the most trusted newsman in America, stated the Vietnam War was not winnable. Films had clear-cut distinctions between good and evil in war. And with the premiere of the Green Berets in 1968, this had a very clear-cut good guys and bad guys theme. It also didn't help that it was produced and starred by John Wayne. No, not yet. My bad. I was telling myself, keep going. This ain't going at this point. Hold on. This war was very pro-war and was very much propaganda based. And okay, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Okay. Listen, just send this to your teacher.